Okay, thank you everybody for joining us. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm Jennifer Abrahamson. I'm the Chief of Advocacy with Landesa and the head of the Stand for Her Land campaign secretariat. Along with my campaign colleagues, some of whom you will be hearing from very soon, I am honored that you've taken an hour from your already Zoom-saturated schedules to join us today to learn more about advancing women's secure rights to land, why that matters now and in the long run, Stand for Her Land's role in that mission, and how you can become a part of our growing movement. But first, just a bit of housekeeping. We're planning to hold a short 10-minute audience Q&A at the end of the event. Please use the chat function to submit your questions throughout the webinar and indicate who your question is directed to if you can. And we'll try to get to as many of the questions as we can at the end, but to those of you whose questions we don't have time to answer, we'll be sure to follow up online afterwards. So thank you very much. And now it's my pleasure to introduce my colleague, Mino Ramaroson. She is a member of Stand for Her Land's Global Steering Committee, but her day job is serving as the Global Land Specialist and Africa Regional Coordinator with the Huairou Commission, which works to empower grassroots women leaders around the world. Over to you, Mino.
Thank you, Jennifer. A warm welcome to all of you. Over the past 2 years, the campaign steering committee has been working together and in consultation with many of you to actualize our vision for a global movement to advance women's land rights. We have built a solid foundation now and are ready to expand our network to partners and put that vision into reality. When I think of Stand for a Land campaign, a quote from the feminist poet Audre Lorde comes to the mind. She said, "There is no such thing as a single issue struggle because we do not live single issue lives." That statement really captured the essence of Stand for a Land, because the campaign is about so much more than the land beneath a woman's feet. Women land rights are also the foundation on which to build secure home, grow food for income and sustenance, and to advance gender equality. Women land rights are critical to accelerate progress on solving pressing global challenges like climate change, poverty alleviation, and social and economic empowerment, among others. And today, the coronavirus pandemic is shining a harsh light on why women land rights are so critical in protecting women and their families in times of crisis. Despite all this, in half of all countries, structural and social barrier prevents millions of women from claiming their equal rights to land, even when laws protect those rights. So, without further ado, let's hear more about how Stand for Land plans to close this persistent global gap. We'll start with a 15-minute campaign overview presented by Jennifer, followed by a 25-minute panel discussion with some of our esteemed civil society partners in sub-Saharan Africa, along with a short presentation from Stand for Land Tanzania. And finally, before wrapping up on the hour, we will have a 10-minute Q&A session. As Jennifer said, please submit a question in the chat function, and we'll do our best to get to them at the end of the event. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll now hand the virtual mic back to Jennifer.
Thank you so much, Mino. We're really looking forward to hearing more from you during the panel discussion. Now, I know this isn't the first time many of you have heard about the campaign, but it may have been a while. So I'm excited to give you a brief overview and share some new developments. So the Stand for Her Land campaign is a multi-year collaborative and inclusive global campaign to advance secure land rights for women worldwide, in alignment with the Sustainable Development Goals, also known as the 2030 Agenda. Now, at the heart of the campaign is collective action, bringing local, national, regional, and global voices together to really move the needle on turning women's land rights into reality in women's lives. So what problem is Stand for Her Land trying to solve? So it is, the primary problem we're trying to solve is the persistent gap between law and practice that prevents millions of women around the world from claiming their equal rights to land. And why this particular focus? In recent years, there have been many progressive laws and policies written that protect women's equal rights to land. However, laws and policies are only as good as their enforcement and implementation, as many of you know. And as Mino mentioned, women in half of the countries around the world are still regularly denied the rights to own, control, reliably access, use, and inherit land. And after multiple consultations with different stakeholders, there was consensus that a civil society-driven campaign would have the most impact by working together to close this enormous global gap. So who stands to benefit? Stand for Her Land is taking a holistic, comprehensive approach to securing women's land rights. And now that means that we're not focusing on just one type of population living under just one particular kind of land tenure system. Where relevant, country campaigns aim to empower rural women, including those living in agricultural areas and forest lands, as well as pastoralist women. We will focus on individual ownership, as well as those who live on community lands or who lease land. And we aim to focus on women living in urban areas as well. And similarly, we're looking at the full spectrum of rights as applicable in any country, which includes owning, controlling, managing, securely accessing, and inheriting land. And of course, we will work for all women, no matter their marital status. Okay. So our ultimate goal is to empower at least 10 million women in 10 countries over the next 10 years to claim their equal rights to land. Now, I stress that this is a floor and not a ceiling. And it will depend on how many country campaigns are formed moving forward. And that also depends on demand from civil society and countries, as well as resources to support their efforts. Okay, so how are we going to achieve this ambitious goal? Our vision is to combine tactics, including collective advocacy, awareness raising activities, communications campaigns, storytelling, joint actions across countries, and coordinated activities at the local, national, regional, and global levels. Now, we believe this integrated approach will catalyze transformational change, bringing down a range of social and structural barriers so women can actually take advantage of progressive laws and policies in practice and not just on paper. Now, in turn, this will ultimately unleash intersectional impact, from greater gender equality to improved food security to economic empowerment, among many other benefits. So what does change look like? So change is going to take on potentially many different forms in different countries, and each country coalition will be designing their own strategy, and that will include activities that will help reach their ultimate goal of closing that gap between law and practice. So this slide provides a snapshot of what some of those outputs and the outcome might be in any given country. So for example, in many countries around the world, Stand for Her Land campaign coalitions will engage in activities to build widespread local knowledge and literacy of the laws that protect women's land rights. Now, also, most country campaigns will likely take on deep-rooted social and cultural norms that often define women as property rather than individuals with equal rights to own, control, manage, or inherit land and property themselves. So they will seek to transform discriminatory attitudes and create greater understanding of the broader benefits to family and community when women have secure land rights. Outputs might also include advocacy and communication activities that result in increased government investment in enforcing women's land rights laws, as well as trainings to improve the skills and capacity of those responsible for enforcing them. And many country campaigns will advocate for innovative, community-driven solutions to resolve land disputes, especially in remote areas where access to formal justice systems can be extremely challenging. Now, together, these sorts of outputs will help bridge that divide between law and practice, empowering women to claim their rights. And again, this is just a sample. Those country coalitions will be driving the design of their own strategies that will address the unique challenges in any given context and will design activities that will bring about the most impact. Okay, a little bit about the structure of the campaign. So again, at its soul, Stand for Her Land is a collaborative venture, and there are 3 main tiers of membership. They include the country-based campaign coalitions comprised of civil society groups, large and small, including grassroots organizations, international organizations with relevant expertise and presence on the ground, and other non-state actors like academics, media figures, and other influential thought and cultural leaders. Global partners play an important role in the campaign, and we are actively seeking organizations to join us. And I'll talk a little bit more about that soon in an upcoming slide. And finally, there is a global campaign steering committee that is a decision-making body and strategic advisory group. So a little bit more about the steering committee. The steering committee is also, in addition to being a decision-making group, is working to sustain, amplify, and elevate the Stand for Her Land network, its mission, and its voices from around the world. Now within this, the Secretariat serves as the backbone of the decentralized but coordinated global campaign, carrying out day-to-day functions to keep the engine running and secure the resources necessary to keep the network growing. There are currently 5 members, as you can see on the slide, with Landesa currently serving as the campaign secretariat. And we are also in conversation with a couple of additional organizations that would bring unique perspectives and expertise to that decision-making body, and we hope they'll join us soon. Okay, so now we're gonna talk a little bit more about global partners. So there are roughly 6 different types of global partners that we seek. And just to talk through these 6 bubbles quickly, we have the country campaign connectors, and we envision these organizations will tap their networks to help build country Stand for Her Land campaigns. And they may even take the lead in doing so in one country or more than one country or region. We're also looking for partners that are in-kind contributors, and there are many kinds of contributions that the campaign would welcome. And for example, in Tanzania, right now, the Thomson Reuters Foundation's Trust Law Program is providing pro bono legal support to develop a comprehensive legal guide for the campaign, and that's called Know Your Rights. So this is the kind of contribution that really adds immense value to the campaign, and we, again, are seeking global partners who can provide similar sorts of services and support. We're also looking for Stand for Her Land amplifiers, and those are primarily organizations and advocates and individuals that will work with us to create engagement, speaking, and other global and regional advocacy opportunities for the campaign members in different strategic spaces. So content partners is somewhat straightforward, but we're looking for organizations that can help generate and drive human stories and case studies about women's land rights that can be leveraged for advocacy and communications purposes. And sort of connected to that are media partners. And we envision media partners to help us by providing a platform to publish in other ways, broadcast content that our different partners are generating on the ground. So for example, it's not a formal partnership, but right now we're running a Stand for Her Land series of blogs on Thomson Reuters news site, Thomson Reuters Foundation's news site. And then last, funding partners will provide the sustenance that will enable the global campaign and all of its moving pieces to fulfill its goal on bringing secure land rights to millions of women around the world. So in designing this campaign, we were very intentional about pursuing a diverse membership base to enhance, influence, and deepen impact. This is the case for the Global Steering Committee and the global partners, but it is especially crucial for the campaign coalitions who will be working to influence multiple audiences to achieve their goals. And as you can see here, women's land rights is at the intersection of all of these different issue areas. In Tanzania, for example, the membership base is comprised of groups of all shapes and sizes from a variety of backgrounds and areas of expertise, including women's rights, legal aid, conservation, food security, Maasai rights, poverty alleviation, and many more. This is the model, and a model with plenty of room to adapt to different country contexts, but it's the model that we envision for all country campaign coalitions to bring about maximum change. Okay, so a little bit about the Stand for Her Land countries. So, as you've probably already guessed, our first country campaign and pilot is Stand for Her Land Tanzania, and we'll be talking a fair amount about that later. So, so we'll just jump to countries where we've begun having discussions and even convenings about starting campaigns, and that includes Kenya and Uganda, where we met late last year with dozens of civil society groups that are working now to draft their strategies for Stand for Her Land. And just so you know, even though we're very excited about this sort of boom for Stand for Her Land in East Africa, we are very eager and actively looking to expand beyond the region in 2020 and in the years ahead as well. So keep an eye out for that. And that sort of leads me to the point about the new campaign conversations we're having. And most recently, we had a great talk with a consortium of women's rights groups that work on land in Colombia, right before the coronavirus really struck. And we've also been talking with civil society groups in Liberia. And in fact, in just a few minutes, we'll be hearing from one of the women leading the charge to kickstart the campaign in Liberia. Okay, so just a quick snapshot on Tanzania. Just to put some flesh on the bones of the campaign there. But my colleague Tike will be telling you a lot more, along with my colleague Nema. So we had the first convening of Stand for Her Land Tanzania with about a dozen civil society and development organizations in January 2019, during which the campaign was founded. And I was privileged to be a part of that two-day workshop in Dar es Salaam and have been thrilled to watch the coalition grow to a diverse and thriving task force of 25 organizations since then. And this past November, they held a high-level national launch, which won important government buy-in for the campaign's goals and mission. And among other activities, which you'll hear more about soon from Tike, they've already designed, developed, and piloted a Stand for Her Land mobile application feature, which you see here. And you'll also be hearing more about that soon again from one of its creators, my colleague Nema. Okay. So now looking ahead, for the next 2 years, we have identified 3 top priorities. And the first one is securing resources so we can sustain and scale the campaign. We're also looking to build out a robust and diverse global partner base to help us in that growth and to expand the campaign and its footprint around the globe and its impact, of course. And then we're looking at more specifically to launch campaigns in at least, again, I emphasize at least 5 to 7 new countries in 3 global regions. And so we aim to expand throughout Africa, of course, or sub-Saharan Africa, but we'd also like to see the campaign take root in other parts of the world, including Asia, Latin America, and the Mino region. So now we're looking for supporters to make this campaign really hum and to be a part of our movement to affect change at scale. So what you see here is a sample of 4 funding levels and what an investment would support. So for example, $100,000, with $100,000, we would be able to both kickstart and grow 1 country campaign for 2 years. A second option would be to help scale the Tanzania campaign. And for $125,000 over the next 2 years, our Tanzania coalition would be able to roll out its activities, tackling the social norms that present a significant barrier to women's land rights. Or $350,000 would support all Tanzania campaign activities for the next 2 years. A global boost of $500,000 would help us build, grow, and sustain the global campaign network for 2 years, including launching up to 3 country campaigns. And finally, there's what I like to call the 360-degree package of $1 million that will provide combined support for a global boost and core support for 5 country campaigns for 2 years. So that brings us to the end of the presentation portion of the event. And thank you for your patience in the beginning. And I know that it was a really quick run through, so if you have any immediate questions, please do submit them in the chat box and we'll get back to them either during the audience Q&A or by email. So now trading my presenter's hat for my moderator's hat, we're gonna jump right into the panel discussion. And I am going to keep my video feed off because we have been having some minor bandwidth issues. So I just want to make sure that the system is not stressed. So I'm going to keep my video off, but we will be seeing and hearing from the panelists. So joining me today will be Mino Bien, Program Director with Social Entrepreneurs for Sustainable Development, also known as SESDEV, a Liberian non-governmental organization that works on issues relating to natural resources governance, including monitoring the impacts of resource extraction on human rights and the environment. Also joining us will be Tike Mwambipile. She is the Executive Director of the Tanzanian Women Lawyers Association, or also known as TAWLA, and she is the chair of the Stand for Her Land Tanzania Campaign Task Force. We also have Jessica Oluoch. She is a lawyer and peer educator at KELIN, a Kenyan health and rights NGO, where she is responsible for promoting and protecting women's land and property rights. And back with us is Mino Ramaroson, who you've heard from earlier. And as a reminder, she is the Global Land Specialist and Africa Regional Coordinator with Huairou Commission. She's also a member of the Stand for Her Land Steering Committee. And again, bear with us with some of the connectivity challenges and issues we might be facing. So we appreciate your patience. So Mino, let's start with you. I'd like to kick the conversation off by circling back to your earlier comments about the impact of the coronavirus pandemic on women without secure rights to land. Can you tell us what you're hearing about the nature of the impact from your grassroots partners on the ground right now? And also, what do you anticipate impact to look like in the year to come?
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer, for giving me again the floor. We have a lot of information coming from the groups from the ground. So I'll just take a few examples. One of our group in Kenya was talking at the earlier stage in Africa when we started the lockdown and the curfew restrictions. There was this widowed woman was thrown out of her house because nobody was there. You know, the watchdog groups, the women that is now protecting the widows could not go to the place, and she was thrown out of her house by the in-laws. That's one example that we are having. And also they cannot go to the local authorities to appeal for the woman to not be thrown out of her house. Then also we have issues in the urban areas when we are looking into the informal settlements, when we're having those our women members that are working as daily worker, they cannot go out because of the restrictions and the fact that they cannot work. So they are now facing the issues of being evicted from their houses in the slums areas. So those are really critical issues that we are facing. And where with all this happening, we can see that really women are the most vulnerable in those times of crisis. We can look into also the government's supports to the vulnerable groups, but they are supporting also the women and the families in cities. They are not really looking into what is happening in the rural areas. And the grassroots women are saying that they are part of the solution. So they really need to be supported and to be heard, because they are having ideas, they are living the pandemic. Even if not the disease itself, it's really the effects of all the restrictions of transportation, and they are looking into, they are going to get the hunger that will come. Women cannot really plant and sell their goods, so issues of poverty are going to get higher with this pandemic. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Mino, for giving us that snapshot. And yeah, it's definitely lots of challenges ahead. But I'd like to follow up with another question. And do you see potential for the campaign to play a role in response and recovery efforts? And in the longer run, can Stand for Her Land play a role in better preparing women, their families, and communities from other crises and external shocks that might strike?
Yeah, I think when we're looking into all those crises, and we have learned already that building community and especially family resilience is very important. So we need to have those broad protection measures that we could provide supports in implementing through the campaign. Really this idea of building resilience in the long term is really to secure their land, because it's the foundation of all the assets when we are looking into, especially when we look into Africa, for example, because it's, as we said, it's the foundation for the house, for producing food, for economic and social empowerment, and also the issue of when you're looking into the food security, getting even in urban and rural areas, if securing the women lands, right, and the campaign can help in these issues to promote the women's work within the agriculture sector and in promoting food security. And also it's a very important issue to get this campaign recognizing the force of coming together as a network, in coming together in protecting those women from the global to the local, and from the local to the global. Communication is key, peer learning, and let me not stop there, because it's very important to have all these advocacy processes looking into, and we can also look into all the tools that we are having already with us, and that were implemented on the ground by the grassroots women, and also one of our partners that are having those tools available that we can promote, like the Global Land Tool Network and the gender strategy that is there, and we are all members of this. So I think that it's really important to strengthen the local with this campaign, and also connecting the dots between the countries and the region and the global. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Mino. Yeah, that was great, and it gives me lots to chew on moving forward, so we'll continue the conversation. So I'd like to turn now to our frontline partners to hear how the pandemic is affecting women and women's land rights efforts in the communities and countries where they work. So we're going to start with Jessica. So Jessica, can you hear me very quickly?
I can hear you, Jen.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, we're gonna. I know you've been having some challenges with your audio, so we'll give this a try. So you work on a community-led approach to resolving land disputes for widows in Kenya who are largely affected by both landlessness and HIV/AIDS. How has the pandemic impacted this work, and what do you anticipate some of the longer-term challenges will be regarding women's land rights as a result of the pandemic? Okay, I think we've lost Jessica. So I can just speak a little bit to what I've heard from her in our discussions. Unfortunately, she will provide a much fuller picture, but so they are working with landless widows in the Kisumu region of Kenya and the Homa Bay region of Kenya near Lake Victoria. And the populations that they work with are largely affected by HIV/AIDS as well, which has led to the secondary crisis of landless widows. And they are spearheading a really innovative project that is working with local community members such as elders and other individuals that are called widow champions, to try to help in community-driven land disputes. A lot of times when these women lose their husbands, their in-laws, their mother-in-law, their father-in-law, their brothers-in-law throw the women off the land because they're not seen as having or deemed as having the same rights as men to land. So, so I know that they have been hearing that some of these projects, of course, have had to shut down. Women aren't having the same access to the justice system, formal or informal. So it is really impacting the work right now. And I know in the long run they're anticipating more widows, perhaps as the virus makes its way through the rural areas, and therefore creating more land challenges for women and their children. I hope I captured that right, Jessica. So I'm going to now turn to Mina in Liberia. Can you tell us a bit about what you're seeing and hearing in Liberia right now? And also, what are your predictions about the impact on farming, food production, and how is all that connected to women's land rights?
Hi, thank you, Jennifer, and hello to everyone. Like many other countries around the world, Liberia has come out with restrictive measures, and this is generally affecting everyone. But on the whole, a lot of people are more worried about hunger than the virus itself due to the restriction of movements, as majority of Liberians earn a living on a daily basis through selling, But however, when you go down in the rural areas, these restrictions, for example, we have a curfew from 3 p.m. to 6 a.m., and the restrict prohibition of movements. It has affected the farming activities of women in the rural areas. So for instance, many of the women, and this is a planting season, as of now, we are in the planting season for most of farmers. And normally they do their work in associations. So there is a group of people that go on a particular farm to go and support to do the farming activities. So now, because of the restriction on large gatherings, it's only restricted to 10 persons at a time. And this is affecting how women in general are working in their farms as of now. And also the curfew is also affecting them greatly because when they go on the farm, they need to return home before 3 p.m. And so it's affecting how much they are producing as of now. And it will continue to affect them until the next planting season. Coming back to the way they market their produce, most of these communities in the rural areas, because of the bad road network that we have in Liberia, and because also the distances are far apart from the capital and also major markets, they normally trade with the neighboring countries, the communities around the neighboring countries. So we have Sierra Leone, we have Guinea, we have Cote d'Ivoire. So these communities around the borders are no longer having essential supplies on the market because there is nobody coming in, nobody going out. And this has affected the selling of produce from the farms by these women, because normally the women are the people that go on the market to sell. So it's greatly affecting them, and you have most of their produce getting rotten, and also you have nobody buying from them within the local markets that they have because everybody is producing almost the same thing. And aside that, it's also affecting the ingredients that they will need for cooking. For example, salt, seasoning, other seasoning, fish, and other things that they will need. So you will see some of them are complaining that they have reduced income now and there is scarcity of food on the market. And the Ebola epidemic in 2004 gave us or taught us a lesson in Liberia, especially for civil society organizations that working to support customary land owners and community rights. In 2014, we have a company that was able to negotiate and sign 9 different agreements with communities, whilst at the same time, there were restrictions on gatherings like we have now, and there were restrictions on movements like we have now. And so civil society could not go on the ground to provide that advisory support the communities needed during those times. And so there is that possibility that land transactions will occur because we still have companies on the ground, they're going by their normal activities, but we are sure that it will happen without adequate consultations and usually leaving women out. And this is because the traditions as of now, there's a great barrier for women, most women in most rural areas, to sit on a table with men to discuss about land issues. And so this is why the Stand for a Land campaign is necessary now in Liberia, especially now to promote and secure women's land rights and to get them prepared, for future occurrences like what we are having here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mino. That was really interesting. The picture that you painted about the impact in particular on women's farming, food security and incomes, and the role that land rights plays in that for women. And the experience of Ebola as well, of course, is incredibly relevant. So thank you. So Tike, if you could just, in just a minute or so, can you let us know what you're seeing in Tanzania? So you work in rural communities across the country to raise awareness of women's rights to land in those rural areas like Morogoro, where I visited last year with your team. And so what are you hearing from them?
Thank you, Jennifer, for the question. Tanzania, as you all know, we are not on lockdown compared to many other countries, but safety measures have been put in place by the government, including social distancing. Again, the effect of COVID-19 so far has made some of the offices staff to work from home. They are not getting salaries because no businesses. Reports from the media and legal aid clinics have shown that GBV is on the increase now. For example, in a situation where the abuser lost their job or salary, what do they expect? What do you expect them to do? They look for someone to, to ease their anger by abusing them. And again, we have been noticing a lot of people migrating to rural areas, running away from the city. Mm-hmm. And when they go to their hometown, who is taking care of them? It's the women. So now the time which was spent to produce food or to, to generate income to help their families, now they spend more looking after their relatives. And this, again, it's leading to more exposure to abuse there from their partners, at the same time from the relatives who are coming from the cities. And to top it up, it is hard again for women to access justice through the formal or even informal structure due to fear of getting COVID-19. And you see that the majority of legal aid clinics now have closed. Us lawyers are now scared to attend clients. Courts are open, but most of the time cases are postponed to a later date. Now imagine this woman who has land issues and the land was taken away. What will happen to her? So that's the challenge that we are also seeing in future. Again, data do not lie. Women in Tanzania depend on land to sustain themselves through farming for their food and also as a source of income. Now, if they're evicted or otherwise prevented from accessing land, food security will be impacted and affecting broader society. And if you are not careful, COVID has or will have an avoidable impact to food production in Tanzania, and I'm sure to the rest of the world. And I think, therefore, what we need to do is to continue raising awareness and also to amplify the Stand for Our Land campaign, as you've just said, Jennifer. And again, while we are doing all that, we also need to take care, to take necessary safety measures because we are better alive than dead.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Tike, so much. Yeah, this is we're now meant to be moving to Jessica, and I see that we are running a little short on time, but I'd like to give Jessica a chance to speak as well. Jessica, can you maybe turn on your mic and let's check out your connection.
Can you hear me, Jennifer?
We can hear you now for a second. Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay, let
me try again.
Okay, so let's try again. So actually, if you don't mind, I'd like to just jump to the next question I was going to ask you. So a little bit more about the campaign in Kenya, or what will be an emerging campaign in Kenya. So we last met late last year in Nairobi, along with several of your civil society colleagues, to lay the foundation for Stand for Her Land Kenya campaign. So can you tell us a little bit from your perspective, what is the added value that Stand for Her Land can bring to advancing women's secure rights to land in Kenya?
So since we met, as Kenya, we were able to have our priority areas, and one of them was women's inheritance rights. So as a result, the civil society organizations came together and we were able to develop a memorandum that has informed the review of the law of inheritance in Kenya, which is referred to as the Law of Succession Act, and it is currently under review. What the issue was initially was that women's property rights were not being recognized, and so as a result of the campaign, we have been able to incorporate provisions that are promoting women's property rights, and also taking cognizance of the fact that we have cultures that sometimes do not protect women's property rights, and the previous law was supporting those cultures. But with our incorporation of the priority areas in the campaign, we have been able to review that law. The second thing that we planned, that we discussed as a country for us to do was...
Okay, I think we're losing you. Okay, we'll just stop there. And I just want to remind everybody that if you have any questions for any of our panelists, please send them through in the Q&A or chat function, and we'll be sure to answer them. And we can also put you directly in touch with Jessica. I think her last point was about alternative dispute resolutions, and that there's a real possibility to enhance that and move the needle on that as to be adopted as officially and recognized as a means for resolving disputes in the country, because in remote areas in particular, women really just don't have access to the formal system. So we're going to quickly move on. We are getting short on time. If you could just maybe summarize just in a couple of, just a couple of sentences, Mino, back to you, a little bit about Stand for Her Land in Liberia. I know we've just started talking about it, but I'd love to hear a little bit of the background about the Women's Land Rights Task Force there in Liberia, and the work that you did on the Land Rights Act in 2018, and how Stand for Her Land can build on that.
Thank you, Jennifer. The Women Land Rights Task Force, provided the gender lens, to the land reform processes, through the advocacy based on evidence-based research that was done, and which resulted into significant changes in the 2018 Land Rights Act that was being developed at that time. And notably among this win is a whole chapter dedicated to customary land rights, which recognizes, protects, and guarantees. But most importantly, the Act included stronger protections for women's land rights through the inclusion of provisions for women's equal participation in local land governance, as well as provisions for spouses with equal rights to be members of the land-owning communities. But despite this victory that we have mentioned, women will not be able to realize the full bundle of rights given under the law if customary landowners, particularly women, are not even aware of what rights they have in the law and how they can realize them. And women will not be able to realize, the full bundle of the rights if customary norms and practices still pose barriers to women's land rights, because we have strong, deeply rooted traditional systems that pose barriers for women access and control over land. And this is where the Stand for Her Land campaign comes in. And we're hoping to advance a systemic change in how women gain equal access, ownership, and control to land, economic growth, and opportunities.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Mino. And looking forward to continuing to work with you on getting Stand for Her Land off the ground in Liberia. Very quickly, Tike, we are running short on time, so just a couple of points. If you could let us know a little bit about what some of your achievements have been in Tanzania since the campaign has launched there, and what you hope to achieve moving forward.
Okay, thank you very much. One might wonder why Tanzania, being the pilot country. This is because the existence of will toward women's rights and also strong coalition that existed. And also we have progressive law. And the campaign started last year where the Landesa convened organization that work on land rights and even issues to do with gender. And we met and then we formed a coalition. We formed a task force that had 25 members. And since then, we began working towards development of a strategic plan as a way to guide us move forward. And then we were able to launch the campaign last year in November with a bang. So this campaign, basically, Jennifer has said already at the beginning, but then we came up with 4 main objectives that we thought that will guide us during the time of this particular campaign. Because we wanted to have 4 mainly focused. And the first one, to address culture norm, because that has been the biggest issue. Then the second one was to promote women use of land for economic benefit. The third, increase women participation in decision-making bodies and structure. And the last one, to promote women land rights in the regions where land-based investment is taking place. Well, the way we work as a coalition, each organization has got a responsibility to ensure that they are contributing towards the campaign. And we have, broader membership. We have members who deal with the media. Then we have the media at our hands. We have the TAWLA, and we also have Sheria Kiganjani to help us, to ensure that the campaign. We all know that campaign is about, reaching out, sharing information to different forums. And then we have organizations like ourselves that provide legal aid, that does advocacy. And we have other organizations that work with the market and all that. So everyone has got their responsibility to ensure that the campaign, we're amplifying the campaign and everybody is aware about the campaign. And some of the things that we have done collectively, much as now we have those one with the individual organization, some of the activities or what we are planning to do, for example, we want to organize the first ever National Women Land Conference that will take place next year. And the plans, we have already started to plan. And we might wish for you, our audience, to be part by contributing in different ways. You can contribute to us in terms of money, but at the same time also in terms of technical support. And we also know that the government is about to enter a contract with the World Bank, a project that will facilitate communities to access land certificate. And as a coalition, we are looking forward to also monitor that particular project. And this, I think, is very key, and your support will also be needed. And already Jen spoke about trust law that is helping us to develop legal analysis and Know Your Right book. And then we are also planning to, we have something that is being cooked, which is the law on your palm. That will be, it's a tool, someone else is going to talk more about this, but it's a tool that is dedicated to land monitors who are using the application to collect data in the relevant societies and villages. And through this segment, the land monitor will continue to record ongoing cases related to women land rights as well as seeking legal assistance on women land right matters. And this will also help lawyers to, to ensure that the lawyers to assist the women, but at the same time also will help to do further advocacy. And the challenge is also, we are facing some challenges, and some of the challenge which is big is funding, because most of us do not have funding. Yeah.
Thank you, Tike. Thank you so much. I know you have a lot more to say, but I think we want to move on, and we're going to end with a presentation that is a good segue from your presentation or your remarks just now about the Law on Your Palm mobile application that they've just designed in Tanzania. And they have, I'm going to hand the floor over to my colleague, Neema Magimba, and she's with Sheria Kiganjani, again, which means law in your palm in English. So over to you, Nema.
Thank you, Jennifer. It's an honor to be able to speak on Law in Your Palm's role in the campaign and the continued efforts in ensuring that women can access secure rights to land. I want you to meet Saida, a young girl from a village in Tanzania who was forced into an early marriage at the age of 13. Not knowing her rights, Saida endured an 8-year abusive marriage with an older man until the passing of her husband. Immediately after her husband's death, the husband's relatives took everything, including the piece of land that her husband left behind, claiming that as a woman, Saida was not entitled to inherit anything. Not knowing her rights and not being able to access or afford a lawyer, Saida is left without any help. Saida and 22 million Tanzanians face lack of access to justice every day due to financial and geographical constraints. Now, since we believe that everyone has the right to access justice easily and affordably, this is why we came up with Sheria Kiganjani, which is the Swahili word that translates to law on your palm. It's a digital platform that allows users to access legal services through their mobile phones. It's available on both smartphones and featured phones. Within the platform, users are able to locate the nearest lawyers to them through a map. Users can talk and chat with lawyers 24/7. Users have access to over 5,000 questions and answers in Swahili language that simplify the complex laws, together with drafts of legal documents that are used in courts and other legal engagements. This is an interface of our application showing different application segments. In 18 months of operations, we've been able to get over 22,000 downloads, and we receive an average of 600 monthly inquiries. These inquiries range on matters of land, marriage, inheritance, and human rights generally. We've been able to solve 1,480 cases, and 384 of those cases were land related, including Saida's case. And we've been able to connect 300 lawyers. The form is available throughout Tanzania, and we receive inquiries from all the regions in Tanzania. Now, as part of the campaign and the task force team, Sheria Kiganjani has developed a segment for the Stand for Her Land campaign within the application. The segment hosts all of the campaign information. It's the first picture on the left on the presentation. The segment hosts all the campaign information and the question and answer segment on women land rights in Swahili language. So it simplifies the complex land laws. The segment has proven to be very useful, especially to the community land right monitors from different communities who use this segment as a learning tool while supporting women from their communities. Also, as part of the campaign, Sheria Kiganjani trained community land right monitors from 3 villages in Tanzania and piloted the use of the Stand for Her Land data collection tool on the right side of the presentation. The data collection tool works both online and offline, allowing the community land right monitors to collect, record, and report in real time on the support they provide to the women in their communities in relation to land rights. And over 120 cases have been attended to and resolved using this tool since pilot. In association with Landesa and the campaign, we have also launched a COVID-19 versus women land rights emergency response. Now, we know that women are most likely to be burdened with the care of family members during this crisis. And as Tike mentioned earlier, the enforcement of quarantines and social distancing is leading to a high rise in domestic and gender-based violence. This emergency response is geared to the sharing of information around safe and preventive health measures against the virus. This will include safe ways to work in markets and farms during this period, since you know that Tanzania is not on lockdown at the moment. Also, information on avoiding customs, which could spread the virus. The response will also provide information and support. Yes, so then the response will also conduct an online training to community land right monitors on how to support farmers and women who are most vulnerable during this period. All this information will be shared through a social media campaign which we've launched together with bulk SMS and through community radio adverts. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nema. So that is it. I see we're at time. I do see that there are a good handful of questions that have come through, and I'm so sorry we can't get to them today, but we will be following up with you over the course of the next few days to each and every one of you with answers to your questions, and we will ensure that the right individuals are answering them if they're directed towards any of the panelists or presenters like Nema. So without further ado, I would like to just say thank you to everybody for joining us today. We hope you join us soon in our quest to empower women around the world to claim their equal land rights. And please be in touch with any further questions again, or to start a conversation. So you can reach us at, if I can make this work this time a little bit better, let's see. So you can, how to find us, you can reach us at either of these email addresses. You can reach out to me directly at jennifera@landesa.org, or to the contact at Stand for Her Land. That's stand for with number 4, herland.org. We have a website, so please do check it out to find out more about our vision and about Tanzania and what they're doing now. Again, that's standforherland.org with the number 4. And of course, you can find us on Twitter and Facebook. And I do encourage everyone to be in touch with me, in touch with any of us at the earliest moment to answer any questions you might have and to start a conversation. So I hope you all have a pleasant rest of your day or evening, depending on where you are. And please be well and be safe. Thank you so much.